I can't tell you how absolutely gut-wrenching it is to be turning around again just when I thought I was good to go. So I've just slipped lines from Nuuk, which is just behind me. I'm out in the fjord. I'm just going to keep pushing north until I need a break, then I'll pull in somewhere for a sleep and then keep going. I made it as far as the end of the fjord that leads to Nuuk, and I'm turning around and going back. We've decided that the solution is to install another VHF antenna up the top of the mizzen mast so that the AIS and the VHF no longer have to share an antenna. Radio check confirms all of the electrical connectors I've done, and it's been a few, are all working now. There's no static down the VHF. Alright guys, it has definitely been a trying 10 days. So Yeva arrived into Nuuk with me 10 days ago with broken heating, broken AIS. We've got new heating, new AIS. We installed a secondary antenna that we found out was faulty after doing the full installation up the mizzen. Took that down, got another antenna back up today. A little bit quicker getting it up the second time because I knew what I was doing from the first one being faulty. And I am so finally chuffed to say that Yeva is ready to go again, and so am I. We have topped up our water tanks. I am about to grab dinner in Cafe Esmeralda behind me now, get a good night's sleep in me, check the weather forecast, decide when the best time to leave Nuuk is. So I've just slipped lines from Nuuk, which is just behind me. I'm out in the fjord. So that is Nuuk, which I've just left behind. Beautiful scenery behind the boat, all around the boat really. So the plan now is just to top up the freshwater tank slightly, and then we will get the sails out and get on our way. I'm just going to keep pushing north until I need a break, then I'll pull in somewhere for a sleep and then keep going. Some days it really just feels like the universe has got it out for you, hey? I made it as far as the end of the fjord that leads to Nuuk, and I'm turning around and going back. Yeah, I left Nuuk a couple of hours ago, and since leaving my VHF has given nothing but static the whole way down it. Now I can get calls from other boats and I can make calls and we can hear each other, but in the interim it's just static, louder and louder. The reason I know that it's definitely me causing the problem, Yeva, is that as soon as I switch the AIS off, the static stops. Now the AIS box and the VHF share antennas through a splitter, and there must be some sort of grounding issue in that system for the static to stop immediately as soon as the AIS is switched off. The issue is obviously that it's not safe, it's not working right. Nuuk is the capital of Greenland. It is the best place to be for trying to fix anything. There are actually marine chandleries here and places I can get spares and bits of equipment. I can't tell you how absolutely gut-wrenching it is to be turning around again just when I thought I was good to go. But I've said all along from the very beginning that my utmost priority with this voyage is to keep me and my boat safe. And that means systems need to work. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And hey, if it were easy, someone would have done it by now, right? We are making history with every mile that we go, Yeva and I. And this is one more setback, one more challenge to overcome. Tears of frustration. But I will overcome it, as I have all the other issues so far, and as I will keep doing. So fingers crossed there's room for us still in Nuuk. Fingers crossed I can get my magic electrician from CapitalCom back on the phone. And here's hoping we're not delayed for too much longer. Alright, hello everybody. So it is now 2 days after turning the boat around and coming back into Nuuk. And then yesterday was spent troubleshooting why the AIS could be causing static down the VHF. And We've decided that the solution is to install another VHF antenna up the top of the mizzen mast so that the AIS and the VHF no longer have to share an antenna. So the plan for today, I've just gone and bought some parts that I need to make a hell of a jerry rig to try and get this installed at the top of the mizzen, because there isn't actually sort of a plate or an area to install an antenna up there. There's also no way of leading the cable through the inside of the mizzen. There's nowhere for the cable to come out the bottom. And I'm just about to run through the game plan in my own head, make sure I've got it right, and then have a go at installing this up the mizzen so that we can crack on. And bloody fingers crossed that this is the end of our issues now. Right, I've got the music on. What I'm doing at the moment is removing the core from one of the spare ropes that I've got on board, so that I can use the sleeve for the rope as a cover for the new VHF antenna cable. So this new antenna is going to be mounted at the top of the mizzen. The only issue with it is that I haven't got a way effectively of running the antenna cable inside the mizzen mast. So it's going to have to be hoisted on up the outside of the mizzen. So I want to give it as much protection as I can, considering that it's not going to be inside the mast. So at the moment I am just removing the core from inside this rope, to make a protective sleeve. There we have it. So now I want to run this cable through the protective sleeve before I extend it. Right, so I've just got some electrical tape around this end for now. Once I've tested that everything works as it should, before I actually rig this up, I will put self-amalgamating tape around most of this as well, just to help keep that as watertight as possible. What I need to do now is, what do you call it? Splice connector onto that so that I can make an extension for this cable. Okay, so on the end of this cable for the VHF antenna, what I'm going to do is splice this connector on, and then splice one of these to the end of the extension and join them together. Then I need to put one of these on the end of the extension cable. And we're going to connect everything and make sure it all works as it should before I continue with the jerry rig of actually getting it up the mizzen. Actually, what I'm going to do is test with my multimeter that we're getting a reading or not getting a reading, so that I can make sure that whatever it is or isn't reading stays the same after the connector's made. So at the moment that's not reading anything at all, which is totally fine. It's just a reference point, so that once I've put the connector on I can make sure it's done right. So you've got one end, little O-ring, little plastic cap, and then this end's going to get twisted on there. But before I do that, I'm just going to put a tiny wrap of electrical tape, basically so that the protective sleeve for the inside wire reaches once again the same diameter as the outside wire. About 12 degrees out here, which is not too bad for Greenland. Okay, so now they're roughly the same diameter again. So what we've got to do is get this. There's a little pin in here that needs to be pushed into those center wires, which you're better off doing with a bit of a rotation and a push. It's a little bit fragile, but you know, it's not going to fly off. Then we're going to squeeze in a couple of these teeth so that they pierce the outside protective cable and touch those wires on the inside. That is the plan anyway. So you don't want to do them too tight or you end up going all the way into the inner wire, which you don't want to do, the innermost one. But you want to squeeze them tight enough that they do actually pierce the protective shield. This is all the stuff I've learned how to do with the legend at CapitalCom, who's been chatting me through some of these issues over the last week. Here's hoping I can get this all rigged up today, because Yeva and I need to get a wiggle on. Need to stop sitting in port and get out sailing. Okay. So it's a little bit bent, but I do have plenty of these, so if it hasn't worked for whatever reason, I can always take it off and go again. Let's give that one more little squeeze. Now what I should be able to test with the multimeter is that I should still not have a reading, essentially, if I touch the other side of the connector with the inside pin to make sure that that's not touching the outside at all. Still no reading, which leads me to believe that I've done that right. Only really one way of knowing is connecting the whole thing together at the end, but still no reading, so that sounds about right. Okay, got there in the end. Now I've got to join this to the extension. So now I'm just repeating that process on the end of the extension cable so I can join them together. So that is the extension done. Now I need to slice the connector onto this end so that I can plug all of this antenna cabling into the VHF. Then I'm going to test it and make sure it all works. One step at a time now. Onto the other end of this. Got a couple of very loud neighbours today. System test shows everything working as it should and no static coming down the VHF anymore. Right, we've just had an answer from a vessel in the vicinity. I know that Asiat Radio have been having their own issues. That could explain why they're not answering channel 16. There is a vessel on a mooring buoy across the harbour that has answered me, which could also mean that I just need to mount the AIS antenna higher up. Okay, so the last radio check confirmed that the connector I'd done was the problem. This one's working well. Had an answer and a call down the VHF, so we're all hearing each other fine. So I've unplugged it again, turned everything off again, and now we get to the jerry rigging part of actually getting the antenna up the mast in such a way that it is going to be stable enough to stay up there. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Tim. Costa.
These guys are coming to give us a hand. We're just about to send Tim up the mast to see if we can secure my antenna any better, because it's still quite wobbly. And I'm terrified of heights, so he's taking one for the team. Okay, so thanks to Costa and Tim's help, we've now actually made a bracket, like a mounting plate for the secondary antenna at the top of the mizzen, which is bolted through the top of the mizzen.
Alright, so here's what we got. We put this piece of wood, and then where shivs usually go through, there's none on this boat on the front. We put some bolts through and tighten them to a piece of wood. I put some zip ties to lock it in. And then they attach that to the antenna, and the wire comes through that red one. She fished it through, Ella did, and then we tied it to this line that's tied up in there. It goes down to the ground so they can hook up the thing, because they can't run the cable through the mast right now. So it looks pretty good. I think it's, hopefully it'll be secure around the Arctic.
Okay, I had to do it twice, but the connector on the end of the cable that is cut to the right length now works. Radio test with the boat in front has just confirmed we are both receiving and transmitting, being heard and hearing. So now I just need to sort this cable out so it's not laying all over the place, and then tidy up. Radio check confirms all of the electrical connectors I've done, and it's been a few, are all working now. There's no static down the VHF. I need to tidy up because once again Yeva looks like an absolute bomb has gone off. And then I'm going out with some crew from some of the other boats, Tim and Costa, and some crew from Sailing Yacht Navara. We're all going to go and have a beer. A well-deserved one, I think. And hopefully I'll be out of here tomorrow. But I am just so thrilled that the turmoil of the last 10 days is over, and that, fingers crossed and touch wood, we have resolved the gremlins on board. Yeah, I'm very, very excited to get underway again. So thanks for your patience with a little bit of delay in the videos from the last 10 days. Every time I went to make an update, something else either failed or went wrong. But yeah, very much looking forward to dinner in here and to pushing off as soon as the weather allows. So gonna go and check on that whilst I have some food, and as always I will keep you posted.